Here's my take. Mexico could be entering a golden age. It's perfectly placed to benefit from the growing tensions between the United States and China. Parts of the country are already seeing a boom as companies diversify away from China and invest in Mexico. In fact, a good chunk of that investment is being made by Chinese companies that are finding a way to continue to sell goods to the United States. The state of Nuevo Leon, where much of the country's advanced manufacturing is centered, has received almost $7 billion in investment since late 2021, and its governor expects Tesla's recently announced plan to build a gigafactory there to yield $10 billion over time. Laredo, Texas, which deals almost exclusively with Mexican trade, last October beat out Los Angeles as the United States' busiest port. But these promising economic wins are being stifled by bad politics. For the last 3 decades, Mexico has had a run of presidents who, while they have had their flaws, were serious about policy and tried to modernize the country, albeit with varying degrees of success. Alas, that luck has run out. Mexico's president since 2018, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, known as AMLO, is a populist demagogue who recalls the strongman tradition in Latin American history. AMLO's COVID policies were a disaster. Mexico has had one of the highest COVID case fatality ratios in the world. His economic policies have been anti-growth. By one estimate, nearly 4 million Mexicans have slipped into poverty since 2019. He has failed to take on the drug cartels, and he has attacked Mexican political institutions, many of which have acquired legitimacy and competence only recently. His current effort might be the most dangerous. For most of the 20th century, Mexico was a one-party state, with fraudulent elections ensuring that the ruling party always won. That changed in 2000, when President Ernesto Zedillo's electoral reforms enabled the country's first free and fair election, which the ruling party lost. Out of the same spirit of democratization came the National Election Agency, the INE, which has developed a reputation for being independent and competent. Last month, AMLO's party passed a bill to drastically weaken that agency. AMLO had initially pushed a plan that would have killed the INE altogether and replaced it with a new body, but he couldn't clear the bar to pass a constitutional amendment, so he has settled for legislation that hollows it out. Its budget will be cut by nearly a third. Many local offices will be closed. 6,000 staff members will be laid off. Its powers will be curtailed, taking some teeth out of the watchdog. He says he is doing it to improve the voting process and save tens of millions of dollars a year. Now, AMLO cannot legally run for a second term as president. He's taking these steps to ensure that the next elections result in a victory for his party, which he plans to continue to dominate. The Supreme Court is expected to hear challenges to the president's gutting of the agency in the near future. The election agency has not been perfect, but it is a pillar of Mexico's fledgling democracy. Polls show it is the most trusted institution in Mexico after the armed forces. AMLO's attacks on it have been part of his assault on several NGOs and independent government agencies, from those dealing with corruption to human rights. In her excellent article, Shannon O'Neill writes that AMLO has raided the coffers of public funds for artists and academics, weaponized the judiciary, and routinely attacked those who criticize him. AMLO's entire term in office has been out of a Peronist textbook, claimed to speak for the poor, attack the elites, and meanwhile run a shoddy, incompetent government. When a journalist reported on the lavish life the president's son lived in the United States, he released the journalist's alleged personal income information, which the Mexican Bar Association said violated the Constitution and the tax code. AMLO campaigned on a promise to fight corruption, but according to the NGO Mexicans Against Corruption and Impunity, his government awards 3 out of 4 contracts using a no-bid system that does not even ask for competing offers. Mexico's biggest problem is not an economic one, but rather a political one. The state has lost its capacity to rein in the drug cartels, which run large parts of the country. AMLO campaigned on the slogan of hugs, not bullets, but in office he simply ceded the issue to the military, which is deeply riddled with corruption and drug money. In 2020, the United States apprehended a former defense minister on charges of being in league with the cartels, The government of Mexico asked the U.S. to drop the charges, and Washington agreed. Former U.S. Attorney General William Barr recently described AMLO as the cartel's chief enabler. AMLO's attack on the election agency is essentially personal. He believes that he won the 2006 and 2012 elections, but was denied his due. Independent observers do not agree. In fact, much of his presidency is an act of narcissism. He holds daily press conferences that can go on for hours. He attacks the state because its agencies limit his powers. And now he appears to be weakening election oversight. They have their differences, of course, but AMLO has turned out to be the Mexican Donald Trump.